Thank you, Alex. He did prove me wrong, but not really. Um, One of my favorite TV shows on American television is a news magazine called Sunday Morning. It's on CBS. One of my favorite parts is when Phil Hartman does a little heartwarming story about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, just a 5-minute segment. And it's not focusing on famous politicians or artists or anything like that. It's focusing on the average people. Well, I want to share a story about a very average Canadian who is now probably, arguably, the most well-known Canadian in our country. Anyone from kindergarten up to 99 years old would be able to tell you the story I'm about to tell you, Terry Fox and his Marathon of Hope. So Terry was an average kid. He was born in just outside of Winnipeg in Manitoba. His family moved to a suburb of Vancouver. He's in the blue shirt here. He was the second oldest of 4 children, and he really excelled in sports. In high school, his 2 favorite activities were track and field and basketball. In the basketball picture, he's holding the basketball on the lower right. In grade 12, he was voted Sportsman of the Year. And then he made a decision that he was going to go to the Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, and he was going to study kinesiology with the goal of becoming a teacher. But before all that could happen, he was having some issues with his leg, some pain in his knee, consulted the doctors, and found out that he had an osteosarcoma he had in his leg, and he had to get his leg amputated at the age of 18, about 10 centimeters above the knee. One of the things that kept him going during his treatments was the fact that they told him that with the research that had been done over the past few years, he had about a 50% chance of surviving, compared to just a few years earlier, there was less than 10% chance of surviving. So the fact that this research was helping his odds was very important to him. He also was given an article about a gentleman who also only had one leg, who had recently run the New York Marathon with one leg. And so he made the decision, once he was fitted with his artificial leg, to train for a marathon, which he successfully completed. His family thought that was the end of his goal. He met his goal, but actually he used that secretly as another training plan that he had, that he didn't tell his family about right away. And it involves this highway called the Trans-Canada Highway, and you've been on a couple of parts of it. It starts in St. John's, Newfoundland, and it's almost 8,000 kilometers and a couple of ferry rides to get to the other end at Victoria in British Columbia. And his plan was to run the entire length of Canada, and to do that by running a marathon, 42 kilometers, 26.2 miles, I think it is, every single day. When he told his mother about this plan, she said, absolutely not, you're not doing that. But 45 years ago, on the 12th of April in 1980, he dipped his leg into the Atlantic Ocean just outside of St. John's, Newfoundland, and he started on his run. He was traveling at first with his buddy, Doug, and a little while later, his younger brother, Daryl, came along as well. They had a van that they had been donated to him. They had some running shoes that had been donated, and they were basically sort of either living in the van or living in off the generosity of others. The story didn't really pick up too much as he went through Newfoundland, but when he got to Port aux Basques, when you get on the ferry to come over to Nova Scotia, that town met what his goal ended up being. He wanted to raise $1 for every Canadian citizen. At the time, Canada had a population of about 24 million, so he was looking to raise $24 million. In Port aux Basques, the town of 10,000 raised $10,000, so he really felt like he was on his way to his goal. Went through the rest of the Maritime provinces, had a little issues when he entered Quebec. None of the guys spoke any French, and as we've learned over the last few days, you kind of need a little bit of French to get by in Quebec. But by the time he got to Montreal, there was getting to be a lot of publicity about this. And it got to the point when he entered Ontario that he started getting police escorts. They weren't stopping him anymore and asking him, why are you running so slow with this van going behind you on the highway? But they started more to encourage him. Crowds started coming out. Kids were actually let out of school at places so they could come and cheer him on the side of the road. And where we're going to be tomorrow is one of the reasons I want to talk about it, because that's where it really, really took off. When he got to City Hall, there's the same picture that Amela showed you with the new City Hall behind him. There was a crowd of more than 10,000 people. Many public figures from Toronto came to cheer him on. Now keep in mind, he's like a 21-year-old kid while he's doing this. No training of how to deal with the media and stuff. And he always went out of his way to go to schools, to go speak at public places that would would help to increase awareness of his goal, raising money for cancer research. So that often meant starting his running at about 5 o'clock in the morning, doing part of the run, doing his speeches, and then finishing his run later on. And every day at the end of his run, he had a little sack filled with sand, and he would put that at the side of the road. And the next morning, he'd go and pick up that little sack, and he'd start running again with one leg and his one artificial leg. So by the end of August, beginning of September, he had done a pretty good job, almost 5,400 kilometers, and he ended up just outside of the city of Thunder Bay, which is where I am from. This was on August the 31st, because the next day, September the 1st, he started to feel some issues with his breathing, and so he was taken to the hospital. This is outside the So I practiced this in my room, and then I knew, okay, and then I get up on stage. And I was 12 years old at the time. I remember it's outside the Port Arthur General Hospital. That's his dad, Rolly, and his mom, Betty, behind him there. And he had to announce to people that he had cancer in his lung. He said, we have to go home and do some more treatments, but all I can say is if there's any way I can get out there and finish this, I will. So he did go back, and he did start cancer treatments again for the lung cancer. Where he stopped that day is a marker. Back then we were just switching to metric, so it's still written in miles, which he had been using. That mileage marker is on the way to my cottage. I pass that at least a couple of times a week. And then then things really kind of took off. There was a telethon on one of our national TV channels. He ended up on the cover of What's Our Time or Newsweek magazine. Around his neck is a medal called the Order of Canada. It's the highest civilian order in Canada. He, to this day, is still the youngest person to receive that order. He also received the Order of the Dogwood, which is the highest order for the province of British Columbia. But as you can see on the date up there, the 20th of June, 1981 is when he died. Yeah. Anywho, I mean, we all know somebody with cancer. The last 7 years, it's been first me, then my mom, and then my son. So it used to be a lot easier to talk to a room full of 500 elementary school kids about this than it is now, but what are you going to do? A couple of statues near where he started in St. John's, Newfoundland, are recreating him putting his foot in the Atlantic Ocean. So that's at mile 0 at one end of the Trans-Canada Highway. At the other end, another mile 0 at the other end of Victoria, British Columbia. There's another statue, but the biggest monument for him is less than 10 kilometers away where he stopped at a beautiful lookout just outside of Thunder Bay. And because this is the 45th anniversary, a couple of months ago on the same date, his older brother Fred, who's just in his 60s now, he symbolically started Terry's Run again by starting where he started and running to City Hall in St. John's, Newfoundland. So his spirit and his efforts to raise money for research, he was all about the research, continues now with the Terry Fox Foundation. Every September there's a Terry Fox Run Day, and communities all across Canada raise millions of dollars, including even more millions of dollars by all of the school runs. I myself, for like 20 years, organized school runs for Terry Fox. And there are now about 40 different organizations across Canada, including places in Nova Scotia, PEI, Quebec, and Ontario, provinces that you all have now been in, that are working on improving odds, improving life expectancy and quality for people suffering from cancer. His message spreads around the world. Canadians all around the world help to promote events in different countries. While I was teaching overseas in Belgium, we used to host a Terry Fox Run on the NATO base at Shape every year, and we would raise thousands of dollars for that as well. So like I said, you could pretty much ask any Canadian and they're going to be able to tell you a little bit about Terry Fox. Arguably the most well-known Canadian, continues to be honored. He was first honored with a stamp. Normally, like many other countries, you have to be dead for 10 years before you can be on a stamp. So they made it the Marathon of Hope stamp instead of the Terry Fox stamp, so they could honor him immediately. He was the first individual person to be honored on our loonie, our $1 coin, for the 25th anniversary. That last 100 kilometers that he was working on is now called the Terry Fox Courage Highway. Besides schools, sports venues, and parks across Canada, there's many, many streets named after Terry Fox in almost every province. An unnamed mountain has now been named Terry Fox, and it is also part of a provincial park in British Columbia. One of our newest icebreakers, the Canadian Coast Guard ship Terry Fox. And in most provinces of Canada, we have a nice little holiday at the beginning, first Monday of August. And in Manitoba, they've declared that Terry Fox Day. And our newest addition to honoring Terry Fox, just announced before Christmas, in our next redesign of our currency, our $5 bill, which is currently Prime Minister, nice guy, but he is from like 120 years ago, and it will be replaced instead by Terry Fox. So if cancer has touched you, you can take a look at what the Terry Fox organization does, or any cancer society in any country that you live in.